leadership power structures social impacts using systems intelligence. Hello and welcome to this episode of Leadership Power Paradigms. This is Bill Thomas, your host and presenter. We, of course, are going to wait just for a few more seconds to begin. That just allows everybody to come in and join us today. And as we're doing that and things are going along here, I think I'll get my slides ready to go. Whoops. I get my slides ready to go. Here we go. And we'll take off in just a moment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Leadership Power Paradigms. This is Bill Thomas, your host and presenter for today's webinar. It's time to put on our lab coats and goggles as we take this 14 or so minute tour of a leadership science system structure. So let us begin. In this description of the earliest Christian communities, we see how God uses the model of Jesus Christ and his appointed leaders to develop, guide, and strengthen those individual Christian believers to ensure that those who followed Christ's teaching would be totally equipped to carry out the mission, observe the way of living, and conform to the lifestyle commanded by Jesus when he walked upon the earth. By following and observing these principles, precepts, and tenets of our Lord, Christian leaders will help construct a society of divinely empowered people to proclaim God's gifts of everlasting life and great rewards. Perhaps this short story about the dilemma of economist William Bryan Arthur might provide an answer to this question. Professor Arthur needed to prove the effects of increasing returns on economic systems to his colleagues in academia. However, Arthur avoided acceding to their requests for making predictions about those effects because he knew that the essence of science lies in explanation, which exposes and examines through experiments or testing and then explains the fundamental mechanisms in nature and natural phenomena. In the end, Arthur is the economist that is credited with influencing and describing the modern economic theory of increasing returns. Author Kevin Kelly cleverly examines and describes everything you ever wanted to know about the applied sciences or technologies, as well as the natural and social sciences in his book, What Technology Wants. Kelly refers to all of these areas as forming the technium, while proving the interconnectivity of science with technology and its innovative applications. Most importantly, Kelly helps us learn how the roles, possibilities, and essential elements that create the broad spectrum of this technium and makes the products of the technium so valuable, and how useful and important they are to every human on this planet. Eric Ries explains that Taylor preached his message about the use of science in human endeavors and their enterprises. That is, applying the principles, purposes, and processes of scientific management as a way to encourage leaders to study and think about improving such areas as worker efficiencies, standardizing workflows and tasks, and systematic management of resources, to name a few. Ries summarizes these concepts in his short statement, which is, management is human systems engineering. Yet few managers have embraced Taylor's core idea that worker contributions of solutions or ideas, and ecosystemic efficiencies should be consciously and scientifically studied and improved upon through usage of a rigorous experimental approach. Let's not forget that in Taylor's time, men made up the majority of the workforce, so please substitute people, men and women, or he and she for the word man or men. Thank you. What makes a system a structured complex of events, elements, and elegant equilibrium? Leaders should appreciate that all human systems are dynamically evolving and adaptive complexes involving flows of myriad interactions, information, and intentions. In his study of evolving systems, recognition, and description, Dr. Mario Ludovico proposes that assuming that the interaction flows are intentional implies the assumption that the activators of the flows attach the expectation of some effect to the interactions they generate. There is no inconvenience in defining the efficacy associated with any interaction flow as the mathematical difference between the results intended by the interaction and the adverse factors that oppose the achievement of the results. The adverse factors I mean here are dubbed the costs of the interaction. By a terminological convention, costs are all kinds of burdens, constraints, hindrances, frictions, errors, etc., which can attenuate or cancel or even overcome the value of the achieved results. Both results and costs shall be thought of as entities somehow quantifiable by homogeneous measurement units. In principle, the observer or analyst assumes that the values for results and cost are subjectively assessed by the system's activators according to evaluation criteria that are likely different from case to case and objectively unidentifiable. Effective languages are those which allow scientists and technicians to describe, design, predict, and produce events with the desired precision in order to obtain the expected results systematically. In modern science and technology, words, concepts, and symbols represent specific operations of identification, measurement, quantification, and calculation of physical things, effects, and events which are observable to the extent to which they are identifiable and measurable by use of conventional specific instruments. In principle, the specific connection of the operational language with any described event allows anyone to replicate and verify, at will and with no ambiguity, the objective meaning of statements made and texts written and diffused in modern scientific language. Out of the sphere of operational languages, there is no modern science, but only abstract speculation and philosophy, which, as to practical effectiveness, no mathematical language can turn into scientific stuff, unless mathematics itself is the stuff addressed. Now, operational language includes any standardized technological language, such as sets of detailed plans, drawings, models, and specifications prepared to direct and supervise constructions, experiments, or events of any kind. Dr. Lodovico also states that the interaction flows are intentional. That is, it is a quantifiable intent and is always associated with any interaction unit per time unit. Thus, any interaction shall be viewed as some conceptual connection of a flow of measurable things with the expression of the intent, that is, an intent which has an end to achieve that motivates the interaction. Interactions are flows of anything's real, such as commodities, people, information, energy, etc., from any activator to another one of the system. Flows as transfer per time unit of real things from any source to any destination are by assumption always measurable. Otherwise, it's a system that does not regard this theory. The system's interaction flows may consist of either homogeneous or inhomogeneous quantities. However, in the latter case, it is necessary to establish an adequate quantification criteria which allows the system's description to express the detected flows of homogeneous measurement units. In this connection, it is also perceived that the system's activators, that is, the system's component, can modify the respective actions under the rise of unpredicted constraints that might improve or worsen the effectiveness of their activities. In this sense, the thought system is both evolving and adaptive, since the occurrence of alterations in the generation and distribution of the interactions brings about transformations, but does not necessarily imply the disappearance of the system, albeit such an event is in principle possible at any stage of the system's evolution. Dr. Ludovico continues proposing his theory about evolving systems by explaining that starting from any detected initial configuration of the interaction distribution, changes in the system shall be expected that imply potentials of the system's components. The complexity of the system is strictly related to the intrinsic impossibility to predict stable, even if minimal, changes in the initial interaction distribution. Temporary, accidental, or periodical changes in the interaction pattern of intentional interactions can usually be observed or thought of as effects or of seasonal or recurrent modification in the overall natural or cultural context. Evolution processes, however, are caused by irreversible changes in the set of intents that constitute the actual structure of such systems, as it is also denounced by irreversible changes in the initial basic interaction distribution. A salient feature of such a thought system is that all of the inherent characteristic quantities, parameters, constants, indicators, etc., as defined by the theory, can be expressed in function of the recognized and quantified interactions only. This means also, once the system's specific interactions are quantified by appropriate methods and instruments, all of the significant analytical conclusions are also quantified and expressed independently of any other quantity that is extraneous to the system of the interactions described and represented. Simply put, if your philosophical, moral, social, or structural agency decisions help you build empathy for your people or stakeholders, display commitment to your ideals, insights, or individuals, impacts the meaning for your processes, policies, or products, and if your agency of signification inspires trust in your integrity, involvements, or intentions, your leadership power will be quantifiable and easily recognizable to everyone. The properties of the system that I have just introduced hint clearly at the representation of systems whose components direct the respective actions according to intents which shape the ends to achieve I previously mentioned, which are pursued by each activator through interactions with other activators that recognize each other as such. In a word, using something like this leadership case model with its four distinctive activities, will enable you to more clearly evaluate or assess the effectiveness and shortfalls of organizational, team, or individual performances. Thus, the point to account for is that the activators, that is, the system's components, can in general express certain degrees of intelligent, thoughtful, albeit but not necessarily brilliant activity. As we will see, the involved overall degree of intelligence could be measured by the degree of effectiveness expressed by the system's activity according to the level of the system's internal organization that I dub syntropy, or the power of its synergy or signification. Even though today's episode features greater concentration on systems theory and operation, it also examined the principles of science, scientific approaches, and treatments of leadership phenomena. You might better appreciate how leadership power employs a great amount of socially oriented technologies such as mass or interpersonal communications, social philosophy functionings, moral and structural agency, critical thinking, and much more. And finally, I hope you have come to understand that every leadership action that you take is, in fact, a structurally complex, adaptive, and evolving system. This ends today's lesson. You are looking at a catalog of materials, training, and coaching support which are featured in my Leadership Power Paradigms Producer Tools program. You can see that this program is designed to dramatically improve your leadership performances and to use your leadership strengths to comprehensively empower the achievements of your people. Right now, this program is available to you at my lowest possible price, so I urge you to visit the webpage at www.one-im.com/LPP-tools. That's the big URL, the big web link that you can see in the middle of this slide here. Or you can click on the Enroll and Get Started Now button on the right side of your screen. And when you do click on the Enroll and Get Started Now button, it will open up a new browser tab or a new browser window for you, so you won't lose your place in this webinar and you can still hear and see what's going on. And then if you like what you read on that page after the webinar is over, I would encourage you to go ahead and get started with the program now. Don't forget, there is my famous no questions asked, no risk to you money back guarantee for this program. So you really have nothing to lose by enrolling now in this awesome educational program. So while you're clicking on that Enroll and Get Started Now button and opening up that new browser window, or you are opening up your own browser tab if you're on the webinar replay, you can just type in that www.one-im.com/LPP-tools that you see in the middle of the slide here. And then while you're doing that, I'm going to run back over to our control panel, and that way I can send you the links to the 2 bonus gifts that I have for each of you today. And there they go. And what you're looking at there is the 2 bonus gifts, the links to the 2 bonus gifts. Those are the infographic, which is called the 5 leadership uplifter tasks. It's an infographic. It's 1 page, and it is a PDF document so that anybody can actually read it. And all you need to do is to download it and to print it out and put it on your desk, or put it on your a wall or something that you can see. So as you go through your day and act as a leader, you can refer to one or more of those 5 tasks and ask yourself, am I performing this task? Am I performing it correctly? And if you are, well, then I think you'll see how effective your leadership performances are. And if you're not performing one of those 5 tasks, then you probably are not really going to be very effective as a leader. But I'll let you find that out for yourself. And then the other gift that we have for you today is the Words with Wisdom paper. It is 8 pages. It also is a PDF document, and I would encourage you to download it. And then when you have an opportunity, you can read through it on your computer, or you can print it out. A lot of people like to print out those kind of things. It's only 8 pages long, but it's filled with the principles and strategies and tips and techniques that we discussed both in today's episode of Leadership Power Paradigms, as well as in our previous episodes as well. So those are your 2 bonus gifts, and I hope that they serve the purpose for which they were intended, which is to help to improve your leadership effectiveness and your performances as a leader. For those of you who happen to be on the webinar replay, if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you will also see a questions area. And I would encourage you to type in your question or your comment and then press the email us button. And when you do press the email us button, it will automatically send your question to me. It will also send your name and your email address that you use to register for the program. So you don't have to put in any of that stuff. I'll know who you are, and I will respond back to you accordingly. And you'll get an email back from me, basically, is what I'm saying. And it'll have some of my thoughts and ideas about the question or the comment that you typed in. And I answer them all, so no problems there. Secondly, I also want to encourage you to when I do respond back to you, that you might want to provide me with your phone number if you're located in the U.S. or in Canada. Only if you're located in the U.S. or Canada, you can include your phone number. Otherwise, if you're located outside of the U.S. or Canada, why then you can just include your Skype ID. Skype is a free service that most computers can work with, so that's not a problem. I even have Skype on my phone, my mobile phone, and I'm sure that many of you can get Skype on your mobile phone too. But anyway, with Skype, it allows us not only to discuss your question or your comment more thoroughly, it also gives us an opportunity to share documents. And I have a tendency to say, oh, I know of a paper or a report or an article or something that might give you more information about your question or comment, and I will upload that to the Skype area, or I'll type in the web link so that you can just click on that and get to that paper or article or whatever. And so that's why I like Skype. I actually prefer to use Skype as opposed to trying to work with just voice only. So anyway, I'm just looking. I don't see any questions coming in from the live audience, so I'm just going to encourage anybody who is watching the webinar replay, use the question area and communicate with me that way. And of course, all of that stuff is free. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leadership Power Paradigms. I am Bill Thomas, and I was your host and presenter for today's episode. God bless each and every one of you. Godspeed to you all. And I wish each and every one of you the very best of success in all of your leadership endeavors. Take care, and thank you for joining us today.